So this is the Sony Xperia XZ1 Compact. It's the smaller version of the regular XZ1, but it doesn't skimp out on the spec sheet and for the most part offers the same experience as the XZ1 with very few compromises. The phone features the same hardware, the same specs, the same camera, and the same software. There are, however, some key differences between the XZ1 Compact and the standard XZ1, the most obvious one being the phone's size and its design. The XZ1 Compact has a flatter, more boxy and rectangular design and has a closer resemblance to older Sony phones, whereas the standard XZ1, while still a rectangular slab overall, featured more aggressive tapers and curves. The other difference is in the phone's build materials. While the standard XZ1 has an all-metal body, the XZ1 Compact switches that out for mostly plastic, but it does have some metal on the top and bottom portions of the phone. Despite the plastic build, the phone doesn't feel cheap in the hand and it has a satin-like finish, so it's not slippery at all and doesn't attract any fingerprints. It's not the prettiest or most forward-looking design, but if you like Sony's smartphone designs, you're probably not going to have any complaints about it. The main attraction to the XZ1 Compact or any of the previous smartphones from the Compact line is the smaller size, and compared to every other smartphone released in 2017, this thing feels extremely tiny even with the chunky bezels. After using so many large smartphones, it's always kind of refreshing to go back to a phone that fits so easily in the palm of your hand, and it's nice to be able to reach every corner of the screen without having to awkwardly shuffle the phone around or use two hands. A smaller phone obviously means the screen is going to be a lot smaller, and that's one of the downsides of using the XZ1 Compact, at least when it comes to media consumption purposes. Watching YouTube videos and playing games can feel a little bit cramped since you don't have a whole lot of screen real estate to work with. It's a 4.6-inch LCD, which is a little over a half an inch smaller than the standard XZ1, and the screen resolution has been dropped down from 1080p to 720p. After using a lot of Quad HD displays, I can definitely see a difference, but 720p resolution works perfectly fine on the smaller screen. It's sharp enough that reading text or browsing the web is still a comfortable experience, and the overall quality of the screen is pretty good. It has good viewing angles, vibrant colors, and Sony software lets you tweak the saturation, contrast, and white balance to how you want the screen to look. Everything else on the XZ1 Compact is pretty much identical to the regular XZ1. For starters, there's a 3.5mm headphone jack, so no adapters required here, and like many other Sony phones, there's support for Sony's proprietary audio technology that will upscale compressed music codecs to give you a closer to high-res sound, and you have support for other high-res audio codecs like FLAC and LDAC. The phone also comes with front-facing stereo speakers, so while the top and bottom chin are pretty big, they at least have a purpose. They sound pretty clean without any distortion. I just wish they were a tad louder because they sound pretty quiet for front-facing speakers, but it's still nice to have a stereo pair, especially on such a small phone. There's 32GB of storage on board and a micro SD card slot for extra storage, and like most phones in 2017, it's IP68 certified against water and dust. There's a fingerprint sensor embedded in the side-mounted power key, but just like every other Sony phone released in the last few years, this function isn't available on US models, so your only means of security is either through a pattern or pin. The guts of the XZ1 Compact is your typical 2017 flagship specs with the Snapdragon 835 processor and 4GB of RAM, and as expected, the phone performs very well in daily use. It's fluid and responsive, it's fast to load apps and play games, and the 720p display probably helps out quite a bit with the phone's performance as well, since there's less strain on the processor. Even though the XZ1 Compact is smaller than the XZ1, it still has the same size 2700 mAh battery, but battery life is significantly better, and this is again because of that 720p display. The XZ1 Compact easily lasts me 2 days regardless of how light or how heavy I use the phone, and screen on time was always a pretty consistent 5 to 6 hours, which is pretty impressive for a phone this small and a battery of this size. Even though the phone has a plastic body, there's no wireless charging, but you do have the standard Quick Charge 3.0 for fast top-offs or fill-ups. With the exception of the front-facing camera, the camera experience on the XZ1 Compact is pretty much identical to the XZ1. It has the same 19 megapixel Exmor sensor on the back with 5-axis image stabilization, 4K video recording, and slow motion video at 960 frames per second. The front-facing camera is lower resolution at 8 megapixels instead of the 13 that's on the XZ1, but it's still perfectly fine for taking selfies, and it's a wide angle, so it's easy to fit more into the frame, but there is some slight barrel distortion along the edges. Sony dubs the rear camera Motion Eye because it can predictively capture unexpected motion, and the way it works is pretty simple. When the camera detects any motion such as a person running or a moving car while you're taking a photo, the camera will automatically take a few photos on top of the one that you take yourself, and from that point you can pick which one looks best. It's really helpful when you're trying to quickly capture that perfect moment, and having several photos to pick from certainly increases your odds of doing that. The other standout feature with this camera is the new 3D scanning capabilities, and if you saw the XZ1 review, you already know how well this works. You can scan people's faces, food, or anything you want really, and currently these scans can be used as wallpapers, turned into GIFs, and shared to social media, and the scans are very accurate and detailed as long as you do them in well-lit areas. The scans can also be printed off through a 3D printer, or you can order a print of your scan through the 3D Creator app from Shapeways or Sculptio, which are a couple of companies that Sony has partnered with. The same camera and same image processing also means the same image quality. It's a decent camera, and you can get some pretty nice looking shots out of it in good lighting with pleasant looking colors and good detail, but dynamic range is really lacking, especially in the shadows. Not having optical image stabilization really hurts the image quality in low light. Photos don't look quite as sharp as they could be, and they look overly processed that noise and artifacting is extremely noticeable. On the software side of things, the XZ1 Compact runs Android 8.0 Oreo out of the box, and most if not all of the features of Oreo remain intact, like notification dots, native picture-in-picture, improved visual tweaks, better autofill APIs, etc. And it has Sony's usual skin on top of Android, but the experience is pretty close to stock. Sony's skin does feel slightly outdated in some aspects, like the app drawer, for example, is still opened with a button in the dock instead of a swipe up, but you do get some nice features from Sony like customizable themes and PlayStation integration, and the phone is pretty free of bloatware aside from the typical suite of Sony apps. The Xperia XZ1 Compact starts at $600 unlocked and is available through retailers like Best Buy or Amazon, and you're probably thinking $600 sounds pretty steep, and comparatively it is when you can get phones for equal or lesser price that offer more for the money. What it really boils down to is how much you value one-handed usability, and there's not a lot of phones out there that offer the power of the XZ1 Compact in a small form factor. After all, there are people out there who still want a powerful Android phone that isn't massive in size, so if the XZ1 Compact fulfills your wants and needs in an Android phone, the $600 could be worth your investment. So that wraps up our review of the Sony Xperia XZ1 Compact. Let us know your thoughts down in the comments section below, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. We definitely appreciate it. Subscribe to the channel, which is also down below if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell while you're at it so you don't miss out on future videos. And of course, check us out on social media: Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, Google+, all that good stuff will be linked down below. And check out the website as well, AndroidAuthority.com, because we are your source for all things Android.